Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Inside the Blue podcast. I know it's been a couple weeks since I made an episode. Thanksgiving happened, and also, finals are happening in school right now. I do go to college, so I've been preparing for finals and stuff, but also, there really hasn't been too much to talk about in terms of Dodgers free agency. They've been pretty quiet this offseason so far. And I know that the GM meetings happened not too long ago, and the winter meetings are set to begin soon. So we'll have some more free agency news in the coming weeks. But they did make a recent move yesterday, actually. They re-signed Miguel Rojas to a one-year deal, and we're going to talk about that later on in the episode. But I did want to start this episode off with some LA sports news with the Rams, the Kings, and the Lakers. So let's start with the Rams first. So since the last time we discussed the Rams, they are 9-3. Currently in first place in the NFC West. I believe they're tied again with the Seattle Seahawks. I believe the Seahawks are also 9-3. And their recent game against the Carolina Panthers, they snapped a 6-game win streak with a loss to the Panthers. So the Rams were doing really, really well. Obviously, they are 9-3. They've been really, really hot in football lately. They've been one of the best teams in football. But with that loss to the Panthers, they snapped a 6-game win streak. And, you can't win them all. They were bound to lose a game eventually. It just kind of sucks that it was to the Panthers, even though the Panthers are a pretty decent team this season. I wouldn't say they're good or great. They're just decent. They're a lot better than they have been in previous seasons. So with this loss, they also lost the 1 seed to the Chicago Bears. So not only did they lose the 1 seed, which guarantees them home field advantage in the playoffs, they snapped their 6-game win streak. So it's pretty not a big deal, but sort of. You want that home field advantage throughout the playoffs, especially in football, because a lot of playoff series in football, not a lot, like pretty much every single one, is a 1-game elimination each round. So you really want home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And there's still time for the Rams to regain that 1 seed, but they have to play flawlessly. They kind of have to just win out the rest of the season in order to kind of guarantee an easy path back to the 1 seed. They really need to limit their turnovers. This past game against the Panthers really exposed the fact that they give up a lot of turnovers. Not exposed, but they did give up a lot of turnovers. And that was really ugly to watch. And the defense was incredibly hard to watch during this past game against the Panthers. They need to improve. They need to put more pressure on the opposing offense and force them to make mistakes and earn their yards. That's a huge key for this Rams defense. They cannot just let the other team just stomp all over them and just consistently gain easy yards. They need to really pressure the other team to make mistakes, and they need to make them earn their yards. And that's something that this Rams defense needs to improve on, especially if they want, again, to regain that 1 seed. But overall, the Rams are doing very well this season, and they are definitely going to be in the playoffs. And I see them going pretty far in the playoffs. I mean, regardless if they have home field advantage or not, I really do think that the Rams have a good shot of going very far in the playoffs, if not making it back to the Super Bowl. So that was the Rams. I want to move on now to the Kings. So the Kings when I last talked about them in, I believe, my last episode, they were second place in the Pacific Division. They have since moved down to third place. They are 12-7-7, so 12 wins, 7 losses, and 7 overtime losses, and they are 5-2-3 in the last 10 games. So the Kings have been playing good hockey, but not their best hockey. They've been competitive. They've been pretty good, but I feel like they can be a lot better. We have definitely seen this Kings team be a lot better in past seasons. So I would say that they're having, a decent season so far. They're not playing great, but they're not playing too horribly like they were to start the season. Today, they activated Drew Doughty back from the injured reserve. So they got a veteran presence back out on the ice along with Kopitar out there. So that's good news. And I didn't get to talk about this last time, but I wanted to talk about, Adrian Kempe's extension. So Adrian Kempe signed an 8-year, $85 million extension, which was something that I really wanted the Kings to do. I really wanted them to just hand Adrian Kempe a blank check and give him whatever he wanted. Adrian Kempe is one of, if not our best scorer on the team. He is a bright young talent that has been with us ever since his NHL career started. And he's been one of our better players. And I'm really, really glad that they are incorporating Kempe into their future plans. And they are definitely going to be building the future team around Kempe. I wouldn't be surprised either if Adrian Kempe was to wear the captain or become the captain after Kopitar retires after this season. I think that it would be a really good thing for him to become the captain. He is just an all-around great player, and I'm glad that the Kings invested in Kempe. He's one of our best scorers on the team, and he leads the team in points this season. So again, he's really, really good. He scores a lot of goals. He also has 3 overtime winning goals. So in 3 overtime wins, he has scored the winning goal. And that's something that is incredibly important because the Kings go into overtime a lot. In fact, the Kings have gone into overtime 12 times this season. They've won 5 and lost 7. So they're okay in overtime. They kind of rely on overtime or extra time to win games. They don't really win in regulation. They rely more on wins in overtime than they do during regulation, and that needs to change. If the Kings want to be successful moving forward, they really need to start winning more games in regulation and not rely so heavily on overtime wins, especially shootouts. When the Kings go to shootouts, they are 1-4, so they are horrible in shootouts. In fact, I was watching this past game, I believe it was a few games ago against the Ducks, and it went to shootouts, and the Kings did not score once during that shootout. So they need to stop going into overtime so often. They need to start winning more games in regulation, and I think that will set the Kings up for better success moving forward. So that was the Kings. Now let's move on to the Lakers. So the Lakers currently are second in the Western Conference, and they are first in the Pacific Division. They are 15-5. And the Lakers are having just a fantastic season so far. They have high offensive numbers and performances. Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and LeBron have just been playing extremely well together. They are a huge big 3 threat to opposing teams. Luka leads the team in scoring. He leads the team in assists and touches on the ball. So he's getting the ball a lot. And when he's getting the ball, he's scoring and getting a lot of assists. LeBron is top 3 in points and also assists. So LeBron and Luka and Austin Reeves are all playing very, very well. And this is the key to Lakers' success, for their big 3 to remain consistent, consistently get the ball, and just do what they do together. I mean, this is a huge threat to opposing teams, and it's showing. They are 15-5. They are also 4-0 in the NBA Cup. So the in tournament or in season tournament, the NBA Cup, the Lakers are 4-0, and that's awesome. It would be cool to see the Lakers. I believe they did win the NBA Cup a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember right. And it would be cool to see them win the NBA Cup again if they can continue playing the way that they have been. Their next matchup in the NBA Cup is against the Spurs, which is the West quarterfinals. So the next game is a knockout game. It is an elimination game, and if the Lakers can keep the momentum going and keep playing their best like they have been this entire season, I think that the Lakers do have a great chance to win this NBA Cup. So that's the Lakers. I did want to highlight them really quick because they have been playing fantastic basketball this season and definitely going to be making the playoffs, I feel. Unless, LeBron gets injured or something drastic happens or like a big trade happens. I know that Austin Reeves is in trade talks or rumored to be in trade talks. I think that the Lakers will stick with LeBron, Reeves, and Luka Doncic because why fix what isn't broken? This is working very well for them. In fact, when LeBron wasn't even in there, they were playing very, very well without him. So Luka Doncic has definitely been the difference maker for the Lakers, and they are going to be set up for success with him as the face of the franchise once LeBron retires. So, with all that being said, let's move on to the Dodgers, and let's move on to what I wanted to talk about in this episode, which is baseball free agency, specifically centered around the Dodgers. So, like I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, the Dodgers re-signed Miguel Rojas on a 1-year, $5.5 million deal, which is such a good deal. I really think that they should have brought Miguel Rojas back. I said this in a previous episode that I did want to see him back just for that veteran presence. And they brought him back. And I think that that's incredibly important, especially since Kershaw is no longer on the team, so he will no longer be in the dugout regularly. Miguel Rojas can fill that veteran presence very well. And this is his final year as a player. He said last season that he will be retiring after the 2026 season. So this will be his last hurrah. This is his very last season as a player. And I'm glad that he gets to finish his career as a Dodger. But he will potentially be staying in the Dodgers organization after he retires. I believe that he wants to be part of the front office, maybe coaching. I just know that he wants to remain within the Dodgers organization. I don't know what role he would play. Like I said, it could potentially be a coach. It could potentially be, the front office. It might be something, but I know that he wants to remain in the Dodgers organization. And I really think that they should keep him in the organization. Miguel Rojas is a bright baseball mind, and I really think that he would benefit the Dodgers organization greatly. So next, I want to get into some interesting updates that I saw on Twitter from Fabian Ardaya, I think that's how you say his name, and Katie Wu from The Athletic. So they reported that the Dodgers were originally linked during this free agency to Raisel Iglesias, Ryan Helsley, and Devin Williams. All three of these players were relievers that I said I wanted the Dodgers to at least think about or pursue. So they were linked to those three relievers, and I can see why. I really think that besides Devin Williams, I really think that Ryan Helsley and Raisel Iglesias would have fit in the Dodger bullpen very well. We've gone over their numbers in previous episodes, but Raisel Iglesias ended up re-signing with the Braves for 1 year at $16 million. Ryan Helsley signed with the Orioles for 2 years at $28 million. And then Devin Williams signed with the Mets for 3 years at $51 million. So those three relievers, while they would have been good for the Dodgers, again, besides Devin Williams, I really think that ERA looked pretty bad. It was above 4, and you don't want to see that for a high leverage reliever. I really think that Raisel Iglesias and Ryan Helsley would have benefited the Dodger bullpen a lot, but they chose to sign elsewhere, which is okay. So it looks like Pete Fairbanks is probably the favored option or the best option for the Dodgers, because Edwin Diaz is asking for way too much. Like I predicted before, I already knew that he was going to want a large contract because he is one of the top relievers in the game. And it seems to be out of the Dodgers price range, if that is even possible, because the Dodgers can just print money, it seems. But Edwin Diaz is likely out of their price range, like I predicted before. So Pete Fairbanks looks like the best option for them to go after. But they were also linked, per this Fabian Ardaya and Katie Wu update. They were linked to Robert Suarez. And so that, I think, would be a pretty good addition, even though a lot of people don't want him on our team. Dodger fans don't want any Padre player on our team, especially since we had Tanner Scott and he was a huge bust. But Robert Suarez in the 2025 season posted a 2.97 ERA with a whip of .90 through 62 and 2/3 innings pitched. He had 75 strikeouts, and he led the National League with 40 saves. So I really think that Robert Suarez would be a great addition to this Dodger bullpen, despite what the Dodger fans or anyone else has to say. I really think that the Dodgers should consider Robert Suarez along with Pete Fairbanks. I really think both would be a great addition to the Dodger bullpen and really strengthen it. And that's exactly what the Dodgers need, because we know that the Dodger bullpen was a huge weakness. And honestly, I'm willing to accept any move they make to try to strengthen that bullpen. That's incredibly important. So those two are currently linked to the Dodgers, and I really think that they should pursue both of them. They are also in pursuit of outfield help by trade over free agency per this update as well. So that's pretty interesting. I really wanted the Dodgers to at least consider some outfield free agents, one of them being Cody Bellinger, and I know that they are also linked to Kyle Tucker. We discussed this before. He's the biggest batter on the market, so of course the Dodgers will be linked to him. I really doubt that they will sign him because he's asking for a bit too much. I really do hope that they bring back Cody Bellinger, though. But some interesting trade targets that were listed in this update were Steven Kwan, Jarren Duran, Wilyer Abreu, Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, and Byron Buxton. So a few names stick out to me. Steven Kwan being one of them, because we've discussed Steven Kwan before. Steven Kwan was supposedly linked to the Dodgers this past trade deadline, and I really wanted them to acquire him because, again, he's a good contact hitter. We've talked about Steven Kwan, like I said. And I really think that they should pursue Steven Kwan and reignite those trade talks with the Guardians if they truly did exist this past trade deadline. And Jarren Duran would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, the Dodgers have done a good amount of deals with the Red Sox, so that makes a trade for Jarren Duran more likely. And the Dodgers definitely have the trade capital to acquire pretty much any of these players that are on this list. I mean, they have a lot of good minor leaguers and they have a lot of starting pitching prospects. That is extremely important to note because starting pitching prospects are big trade pieces. Looking at the Dodgers rotation, you're looking at Yamamoto, Ohtani, Snell, Glasnow, and Roki Sasaki. I said before in a previous episode that it could be Emmett Sheehan, but it's looking more like Roki Sasaki, which is fine. I really wanted Sasaki to stay in the bullpen as sort of maybe long relief. I mean, he absolutely dominated out of the bullpen in the postseason, so I really wanted them to keep him in there as long relief. But it looks like he's going to be a starter, and I originally did want him as a starter, and I think that seeing how he performed in the postseason out of the bullpen really kind of changed my mind. I really think that Emmett Sheehan should take that fifth rotation spot, but they did sign Roki Sasaki as a starting pitcher. I know that, and I know that they want to keep him as the starting pitcher. They only put him in the bullpen along with Emmett Sheehan due to the fact that they did not trust the normal bullpen pieces. So with that being said, we could see Emmett Sheehan traded. We could see Gavin Stone traded. We could see River Ryan traded. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but they could potentially be traded because we already have a very stacked starting rotation. Now, again, some of these starting pitchers are very injury prone, Tyler Glasnow and Blake Snell. So it would be good to keep Emmett Sheehan, Gavin Stone, River Ryan as backups to take over if injuries happen during the season. And of course they do. We know that injuries happen all the time, especially to starting pitchers. So they could be kept as backup or they could be traded. We don't know. But if the Dodgers are interested in any of these star outfielders, I can see one of them being moved. I can see Dalton rushing, but it's likely if the Dodgers go after, big trade targets like a Jarren Duran or like a Byron Buxton. These are big name players that teams will definitely want, bigger trade pieces to acquire. Also today on social media, I did see rumors that supposedly Teoscar Hernandez is in trade talks. I really doubt that that's happening. I really think that that's extremely unlikely. I don't think that the Dodgers would trade away Teoscar Hernandez for any reason. I think that might be just some type of clickbait news headline or fake news headline. I don't know, because I did see it. And then also like in small letters, I also saw like, oh, highly unlikely. Dodgers see this as highly unlikely. So I really don't think that this is anything that we should be worried about. I really would think that it's a huge mistake if the Dodgers trade away Teoscar Hernandez, even though sometimes he can be pretty bad in the outfield and he can kind of go cold offensively. He does make up for it a lot. He makes up for it with his bat and he makes up for it with good defensive plays. He has his moments where, again, he is pretty bad in the outfield where I question like, hey, why didn't you hustle for that ball? Why didn't you run in faster to catch it? Or when he goes cold, offensively, it's pretty hard to watch him swing and miss and chase. But Teoscar Hernandez has been a very important piece to the Dodgers team, and I really doubt that they will be trading him away. So with all that being said, that's all I wanted to talk about for this episode. We went over some LA sports stuff, and then we went over some updates for free agency for the Dodgers. And like I said, I haven't really made an episode in the past few weeks because there really hasn't been anything to talk about up until recently. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I am still going to work on the Legends in Blue series, and I will give a hint on who the first episode is about. If you follow the podcast Instagram, I did drop a hint on my story on there, but I will give it to you guys here as well. So the hint for who the first episode is going to be about: he is called the Left Arm of God. That's one of his nicknames. So if you can guess who that is who the first episode will be about. And if you can't guess who it is, I think it's pretty obvious. But if you can't guess who it is, I guess you'll just have to wait to see who the first episode will be about when I release it. Make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram for any updates. That is at Inside the Blue Podcast on Instagram. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will see you guys in the next one.